Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Working Theory podcast with myself, Nick, our good friend JP, and we've got a third person. He's on screen this time. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to introduce our good friend Jared to you. He's going to be joining us for this episode and possibly for a few more. We'll see how it all goes, but we're excited to have him on today. Jared, before we get into things, why don't you take a second, introduce yourself to the people. What do you want everyone to know?
Yeah, no, thank you for being patient with me today and also the invite. I know I was like a dramatic 30 minutes late, but that's kind of how we salesmen are. All right.
We got here.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick. I came from like a very divided household when I was younger and then decided, you know what? I'm just going to go to college because that's what high school told me to do. And so I did. Had a great time, was really successful both ways. You know, I always like to say I had a 4.0 in partying and academically, so why not make the best of both
Not
worlds?
easy to do.
No, it's really not, and I am lying a little. I had like a 3.98 because the partying got too excessive my final semester, but I have no regrets. You know, if you live with regrets, shame on you. That's a mentality I have.
God bless.
But I know that the title of this podcast, Working Theory, it really resonates with me because I feel like I'm just a dude working with a bunch of ideas, you know?
Hey, listen.
I love it.
And that's
There
really
it
it.
is.
And your patience
Very
is well noted to that. Like, yeah, we're all busy dudes. So
Yes.
we gotta find time for stuff like this. I did get the liberty of hearing some of your first few episodes in advance, and I think with my background, which was political science, public administration, like I wish I was there. I could have talked about, you know, trust versus faith would have been my scope. And
Sure.
also just important conversations in learning how to disagree properly. It's a dying art, as you guys touched upon, I feel like.
Yeah.
I could go on and on. Don't really want to, but
Well, no, I mean, I'm happy that you said that because we can totally, you know, eventually another episode. Next time we have you on, we can dig back into that, and you can dissect episodes 0 and 1.
Yeah.
And we can, you know, retouch on all that. That'd be good.
There are plenty more conversations to have, and as any content creator knows, there's no better rainy day well than critiquing content you've already made in the past as a new content to put out. So I'm all for that. But thanks to JP, of course, for you know, talking about salesmen, forever being the gregarious one and always being happy to meet new people, make new friends, and and bring bring Jared into the circle here. Do you want to share that story real quick? Do you want to tell the people?
sure.
You want to talk? Or you want me to talk?
You go for it.
We're at a local brewery, and it was Nick's first time coming out to it, and I was really excited to show him. And so I happen to know the owners just from passing and all that stuff, because I do have a habit of talking to everybody that will talk to me. Some that
won't. Some that may think they won't. You still find a way.
And so one thing led to another, and I'm shooting the shit with the owners, and I introduced Nick to them, and then, you know, their daughter's there, and we're talking about marketing and business development for them because that's what I do. And you know, I see her friend comes in, and I see this guy that's wearing a grunt style, you know, hoodie, and I'm like, oh, that's a friendly figure, but he's at the other side of the bar. Then I see one of the owners go over and talk to him, and I'm like, I'm gonna go nudge myself into that conversation. And one thing leads to another, and a month later we're here. But that night, funny enough, we end up closing down the brewery and then staying there past close. And it was, I think that was one of the first times, not the first time, but one of the first times I've done that. The first time I've done it there. One of the first times that I've gotten to be there past close and be like, open taps, anything you want to drink, have at it, just clean up and make sure you lock the doors up behind yourself.
Yeah.
And then we ended up at my house until 2 a.m.
Hanging out. JP tried to dose me, but we'll save that story for another day.
I did not try to dose you.
That sounds very ominous, man.
Yeah, listen, whether either I'm a pussy or JP tried to dose me, one or the other.
We gave you good aftercare, my friend, okay?
Yes, God bless everyone involved. Made sure I was A-okay, so thank you for that.
Dakota protected you.
Yes, so everything was good. Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys, and again, Jared, thank you very much for coming on. We are excited.
We should start this with a good cheers.
Hey, listen, Sláinte.
I'm all for
We're
it.
all here. We're all here.
Cheers. I guess that's the most important thing of my introduction. I forgot. I like craft breweries a lot. I'd say that's a defining
As you
feature.
should.
Yeah.
As you should. If the beer isn't kicking your teeth, then what are you even doing, right? So I say as I
That's the
drink
weird part
a
is I'm like not even a beer guy.
European light. Yeah. So who
I'm
am I?
drinking twisted teas.
Hey,
Yeah.
God bless. God bless. Well, we're excited to have all of you fine ladies and gentlemen, all the workers out there. Is that what we want to call our audience? If we're working theory, do we call our listeners the workers? Have we? Well, we'll figure that out. But I'm throwing that on the
I don't
pile.
think that's bad.
Okay. All right. Well, for all the workers listening right now, we thought it would be good. We like to mix it up a little bit. We like to have some broader conversations. We like to have some more topical conversations. And right now, as we record on the evening of January, what is it, the 19th? Are we in the 20s yet? January 20th. Thank you. I knew that. It's a lot of talk about Greenland right now, guys. There's a lot going on. It's a big island. It's a big topic. It's a big deal. I'm going to throw it to you first, JP. Just prime us. Talk us. What are your first thoughts? The whole Greenland conversation, how did it come into your awareness that this was happening right now? And where do you think things should go with this?
Well, I mean, the conversation started about almost a year ago at this point when they've, this administration currently started saying we're gonna make Greenland part of America or a territory. And at first it seemed kind of crazy. But then you kind of get into the tactical significance of it, and it starts to make more sense. Like, Greenland is if you look at it geographically, it's a great buffer between.
Feel very strong.
Well, I didn't mean to do that. That was something fell. We can
I'm
edit
busted.
that out. So, anyways, Greenland is a great buffer between the U.S. and Russia. If you look at the Pacific, we have the Aleutian Islands that come off of Alaska. We have Guam. We have, American Samoa. We have so many different areas in the Pacific that we can have bases to monitor what's going on in the Pacific tactically from Russia. So they can't really escape their eastern ports. Technically, yeah.
Their east are, yes.
Yeah, without us knowing. When it comes to their western ports, coming into the Atlantic, we're kind of blind. We don't have anything except for Scotland and England.
Mm-hmm.
And Scotland's already pissed off that there's nukes involved there. They don't want nukes because they don't want to be a target.
Sure.
So it makes sense naturally for us to have an outpost there at least, or maybe not annex it, but nurture that relationship to where we can have more of a U.S. presence there. Because should the European theater pop off like it did in World War II, heaven forbid, I hope that never happens, but it might.
Sure.
If that were to happen, think
better
about
safe than sorry. Yeah.
Right. And what did we use England for during World War II? We used it as a staging area to go for mainland Europe. Well, what if we could use Greenland?
Sure.
And I still think it's so funny how the Vikings and how it all worked out to where Greenland was named Greenland and Iceland was named Iceland. I think that's hysterical.
Sure. Yeah.
But especially when it comes to the submarines. Russian subs are really, really loud when it comes to, how we can pick them up on sonar. But some of their newer ones are very quiet. They've kind of benefited off of using diesel. So almost all of I think all of our subs now are nuclear, but diesel subs are, I believe, quieter, and they're using that to their advantage. And their subs are terrifying. I mean, anybody that discounts them, it needs to, read a couple books, because their technology, we've had times where we haven't caught them until they're right off our shores, coming through the Atlantic. They can't get away with that in the Pacific, but they can do it in the Atlantic. If we had Greenland, we'd choke them off from that. So that's the beginning of my 10 cents, but you guys take off. I'll rebut.
Sure. All right. Well, no, I've definitely got a few thoughts of my own, but before I jump in, Jared, what's your kind of initial take, stance? How do you see the whole situation, and how do you think it will pan out? What do you think is most likely to be the outcome here.
Oh, don't ask me hypotheticals, because that's the thing. I like to think in worst case scenarios. It's part of being an insurance guy.
We
always
we
thinking
need
worst
people.
case.
We need some people who think that way for sure.
Oh yeah, but for me, is there a pattern here? What's going on? I see this as like JP mentioned. It's not new. They brought this to our attention about a year ago, right around the time Trump became president again. But throughout this time, like I want to say even before Trump even, we have Russia, one, invading Ukraine, and always having an interest to kind of undermine American interests. I kind of see this as interesting timing, especially following Venezuela. We're accumulating a lot of assets. Greenland would be a beneficial asset, even though if you look at it from a map point of view, it looks like a big chunk of ice. Like, what are we talking about, right? My fear is kind of similar to JP's in the sense that Europe could be a battleground again. But this time around, and this is worst case scenario, we don't care about Europe so much. And this is to protect ourselves. Because it kind of goes with a lot of the language the administration has currently to an extent. Because, I mean, let's face it, it's always been America versus Russia ever since, well, obviously since I've been born. This really never changed. I don't think it has or ever will. But that's my 2 cents, worst case scenario. I like to play devil's advocate, so.
Yeah. No, and it's interesting stuff. It is important, and it's so funny. I mean, I know we've already talked a little bit about AI and in the short history of this podcast. I don't even know what triggered this for me, but I was spending a little bit of time the other day with ChatGPT, just being like, so let's say Russia launches a nuke unannounced right now, just one ICBM. Like, what's the timeline? What happens? How does that play out? And it turned into this whole conversation, just out of my own curiosity, because again, that sort of worst case scenario mindset of like, what would happen? We all live in the Northeast, there are major cities, like you wonder, it's just a reality of life. And then getting that, conversation, that feedback of like, oh, it probably wouldn't be just one, it would probably be a whole this, but it would also probably come after a lot of tension and not just come out of, you know what I mean? So like all of this, but you have to think about, but what if it was different? What if this happened? What if that, so strategically, it sounds like we all agree, a giant landmass that's mostly uninhabited. There obviously are people who live on Greenland, but by and large, it's just a very icy sheet of rock that doesn't do much, and that's going to come back to bite me later for saying that. But if we could leverage that as a defense asset for the sake of the United States security, that would make a lot of sense. So,
well, building off of what you just said, the early warning capabilities that us having a more permanent presence in Greenland, that would give us it would give us minutes when seconds count, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
We do have the technology now that we can kind of pretty much tell when anything's going to get launched anywhere in the world. But we can't confirm its trajectory. We can't confirm as much as we could. Have you
Which is kind of shocking to me. Like, it's just to say it's 2026. I would have thought we'd be like, oh, something on the other side of the world is entering space. Like, this is the direction. I don't know. I just would have thought that like we'd have that sort of capability by now. But I guess
we
that's crazy.
Don't.
The UK hasn't discovered air conditioning yet, so maybe I'm a little hopeful.
We don't have Iron Dome, but we'll see where the Golden Dome program goes. Right. Ideally, it goes somewhere good, because I don't know if you guys have seen that movie on Netflix, House of Dynamite, yet.
I have not.
I encourage both of you to watch it. It is terrifying. So it literally goes through. It's called the House of Dynamite, I think, and it goes through like it's like from a couple different perspectives, from the dudes that launched the missiles to everything else, and it's pretty much like we have, we get credible intel that there's a missile heading towards us, and then they go through the stages like, well, we can't tell if it's really coming towards us or if it's a test or if it's off course, or like we don't want to start the war, and it makes you think a lot.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot to think about. Now, I'm curious with you guys as far as, again, starting to project a little bit into the future. As of right now, Trump is on Truth Social and he's trying to wave a lot of sticks and use his clout, but I'm curious how you guys feel about some of the methods being used to try to acquire Greenland, and how you would feel about certain. I'll jump in first just by saying, I know as of right now, as of the date of recording, it seems like the only real, like, I don't want to say threat, but like stick being waved in this is tariffs. Trump threatening tariffs against different EU countries. And listen, unpopular opinion alert. I don't care. That doesn't bother me at all. I still, again, I like to, my own experience, sort of like Jared, of growing up in a very, maybe different sort of setting than where I land now politically. It was blowing my mind how a lot of Democrats and even a lot of Republicans, when a lot of the Liberation Day tariffs came out, were warning us about how it's going to be, it's going to crash the economy and you're going to see all your prices, skyrocket and all these things. I haven't seen any of that happen yet. I mean, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but from what, not that everything ended up going through as the Liberation Day, threatened, but I didn't see, the adverse market effects in my life that a lot of pundits told me I would. So I use that to inform how I look into the future. And so I'm like, okay, if there's going to be an extra 10 to 25% tariffs on certain goods from the EU, that doesn't feel like much skin off my nose. So I'm like, shoot, if Trump as president feels like he can and wants to, use that as a bargaining chip in this fight, I feel fine about that. That being said, something a little more aggressive, something like an actual invasion. I know some people are worried that might happen. I don't necessarily see that as very likely, but I don't think I would support something like that. If it was to get onto the table, that feels a little excessive to me. Curious to hear how you guys feel about that whole dynamic.
I would just say that a full-scale invasion is very unlikely. I think that what Trump is doing right now is posturing, and like we said on episode 1, Trump is very good at playing chess. So the tariffs are part of he's moving pawns, right? He's waiting to get a bishop to go for a pawn so he can take the bishop out with another pawn. I don't know. I mean, we're also talking about the fact that this is the guy that was, on reality TV for a little while. He knows how to play the game. And I mean, realistically, reality TV and politics turns out aren't that different. You know what I mean? So I would be willing to bet that what the outcome of this may not even be the annexation or whatever of Greenland, but it's going to be forcing us to have a better relationship with them, on our terms, and saying, hey, listen, you just saw nobody's coming to defend you, so why don't we build a partnership because we can defend you? Because at the end of the day, what matters most? Do your people want to be safe, or do you want to have, say, oh, well, we fought America? That hasn't worked out really well for a lot of countries. And if that's this administration's motive, they're going to get what they want. I mean, speak softly, but carry a big stick. And like you were saying, the stick is, he's starting to use it.
Right. Well, and I'll just jump back in too here just to say, I have no problem with that. Like, people seem to get all uppity about this, the fact that the president of the United States is taking actions that he believes, like, even if you disagree, that's a separate issue. If you think the things that Trump is doing don't benefit the United States, then we can have that conversation. I am seeing people who seem to be, from what I see and hear and perceive, seem to be upset with this sheer thought of the president acting in the best interest of the United States in a way that might be counteractive. And I know people talk about our allies. Yes, we have allies. That's important. NATO is an ally. But America first means America first. Like this, you know what I mean? I don't know how else to say it. And I don't know why people have a problem with that. The Netherlands or South Africa or Japan all have their not only right, but their own sovereign responsibility to act in their best self-interest. They should be trying to screw us. You know what I mean? Like, that's free market politics. Everyone looks out for themselves, and somehow it all works out for the betterment of all parties involved. When everyone, if I've learned anything from graduate level economics courses that I only half understood, Don't take that out of context. It's that when everyone acts in their own selfish best interest, the entire system actually benefits. So I don't know. I just felt the need to give off that little rant for, like, yes, let him cook. America first, and Japan first in Japan, and friggin' Gambia first in Gambia. Like, I don't care. That's what they should do, but that's what we need to. You know what I mean? Jared, I see you nodding a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, America first, baby. I agree with that. I just think that the American people, and like, think about our generation. Our entire lives, America hasn't really changed too much. We've gotten so complacent. Maybe the presidency has gained more power since 9/11. Sure, you can argue that all day. But with that too, now it's like we think of our government as the president or nothing. There are a lot of people at that basic level understanding where they probably, one, haven't read the Constitution, don't really understand that even in our country, the states are separate entities, and they're always fighting for more power too. So if that's happening in our country alone, because our union, we take it for granted, other countries out there are obviously prioritizing their nation. And I feel like we spent way too much time pretending to be a hero for other nations out there when we do. I mean, it's in the Monroe Doctrine. I do believe that's still active. We have every right to defend ourselves. You could define hemispheres, whatever. I think it should be globally now because we live in a global world. Like, it's us. We have to make sure we're okay. And we haven't seen a president with a big stick my whole lifetime. Well, I'll tell you that. I sure as hell haven't.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you could argue that Bush and Cheney were.
Yeah, a little bit.
In a different way.
Yeah.
In a different way.
Through all the way, though, we would still have we would have annexed the Middle East and not just done what the last president did.
Right. That's a whole different conversation of how those.
My last 2 points with Greenland, realistically, is it makes sense, not to disrupt it, but to kind of bring us back to the topic.
Yeah.
It makes sense for us to not keep it, but to maintain a presence there in whatever, capacity it might be. Because we really need to be able to have the data that comes from there. A lot of people don't realize that the weather data from Greenland is so valuable, because when our main supply chain runs through the North Atlantic Channel, knowing where the storms are and where all, like, if we lose all of that and we get into a conflict in Europe and our main job is to supply NATO and our allies, and we don't have that kind of data to know where the storms are and where to send the ships and what to avoid, that's going to cause a serious logistical issue down the road, and logistics wins wars. I mean, we're seeing that in Ukraine right now with the Russian-Ukraine conflict. Look at the first weeks of that war. The Russians, they started, and the lack of logistics is why their 3-day exercise has turned into, a 4-year war now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, on top of that, Denmark has 3 destroyers that are designated to defend Greenland? Do you know how quick Russia, even currently, even with how beat down they are, and with all the stuff that they're working through with their terrible logistics, not their terrible logistics, but the situation that they're in, they could wipe out those 3 or 4 destroyers with no issues. Russia has some of the best missiles on the planet. A lot of people don't want to talk about that. They're not necessarily running the S-400s like you saw in Venezuela. They have the next gen stuff. The S-400s are what they're selling.
Sure. Yeah. And even we should assume it's as good as it could be. Like, the worst case scenario thinking, we should assume that they have better things than we've seen. You know what I mean? We need to be prepared for things 100%. To be worse than we're prepared for,
Well, that makes me wonder, did the Cold War ever actually end?
Well, and that's the question. I know this was a good transition, because I know something that both of you guys wanted to talk about, how this still really fits into the larger conversation of the Cold War, which may still be a little chilly. So, JP, why don't you give us some of your thoughts? And I think that's a great question to start with. Are we still living in a Cold War world?
They say the Cold War ended in 91, but I don't think it really ever ended. I think it just shifted. I mean, right now, what we're seeing, we've never stopped. There have been service members in the U.S. that have been arrested almost every year for spying, whether it's for Russia or more so now for China. So I think that China's kind of taking the lead as the aggressor state to the U.S. I do think that Putin kind of has cooled down the tensions between Russia and U.S., but China's definitely stepped it up. I mean, they have the largest Navy, not by displacement, but by, by number of boats. It's a huge misconception. There was, China's got the largest Navy in the world. It's like, yeah, well, when you measure it by displacement, we still beat them. We have 11 super carriers. We have more super carriers than the rest of the world combined. I think just say, China might be.
I took a road trip down to Orlando a few years ago, and we cut through, I wish I could remember exactly where, but we cut through Virginia.
Norfolk News.
It must have
not
been.
Norfolk News.
Newport I thought
News.
It was Newport News. Yeah. I was going to say Newport News. I wasn't 100% sure.
My internship, I was building a bridge right next door in Smithfield.
Dude, it's stunning. And I come from, a lineage of like Dutch merchant mariners, you know what I mean? Like I have the sea is kind of in my blood a little bit, but it's literally breathtaking. I'd never actually seen like a Navy ship in a dry dock or ever, but like it's
that James River Bridge is the coolest thing to go over.
It's gargantuan. It's stunningly, it's beautiful. It's terrifying. It's amazing. It's like awesome in the truest sense of the word. So anyway,
Smithfield Creamery. Best sandwiches you'll get in that area.
So I wish I could have stayed longer. We were cutting through. We didn't really get much time to stop, but it was something to see for sure. And then that was one ship in one day. You know what I mean? So yes, an American Navy ship is something to see.
I mean, it's incredible when you see the sheer mass. Like I saw the USS JFK, the new Ford class carrier that they're building. And it's like, I saw it from before the superstructure was even on it to when they built up the stuff around the superstructure through the summer. It was incredible to see. But long story short, China's kind of taken up as the aggressors, in my opinion, because even when you look at, and I might catch some flack for this, but TikTok, like I don't have TikTok, but look at what it did, right? We went from social media was bad enough pre-COVID, and then the Musical.ly stuff started taking off. And Vine was Vine. Like I think Vine was fine.
Moment of silence. Rest in peace. God bless.
All right. But once we moved into the Musical.ly phase and then that turned into TikTok, it destroyed the attention span of so many people. I mean, I was guilty of it for a little bit on my old phone when I actually had TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
It's 30-second videos and you scroll. And then you're like, I've never been diagnosed with ADD in my life, but I felt like I had ADD for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just complete brain rot, but we can get to that later on.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, Russia is seriously showing their shortcomings, and that's why I don't think that they're the biggest threat right now. Like I said, look at their 3-day military exercise. How many days has it been since then?
Yeah. No, it's scary to know that there is still a threat there. Like obviously that hasn't gone to plan, but they also didn't get steamrolled back either. Like that's turned into an ugly, bloody, brutal, conflict. And who knows, if a more united front was to try to stir up a little more action somewhere else in the world, so.
The space race is the most, because we're like entering a new dawn of the space race. Artemis 2 is launching next month.
Which I'm stoked
It's going to be the furthest that we've ever sent humans that we know of away from Earth.
I love that disclaimer. I love that asterisk.
Listen, Ty's not here. Okay, I talked to him on the phone earlier today. He's still down in Texas at training. If he was here, he's writing a bunch. I can't wait for him to get back, man. That's going to be a good one. But no, I mean, I've heard, India has already orbited the moon, not with a manned craft, but there's rumors that the Chinese are already up there and they're already mining helium-3, which is like one of the most useful energy resources on the planet. Obviously, it's so rare on Earth, but it's so, there's so much of it. I see Jared. What do you got, buddy? You talk, but I just want to listen. I want to hear what you got to say.
No, I was listening to you, man. Finish your thought and then I'll speak. I promise. A little more.
Well, so rumors have it that the Chinese are already up on the moon and that they're mining helium-3. and they're shipping it back down, and that's how they're meeting their incredible energy needs.
I just listen. I'm the cynic. I'm like, I don't know how we would miss something like that. That's my first thought. But
I don't think
listen.
it's something we might be missing. It might be something we're not being told.
Yeah, the majority of
Well,
the
no,
stuff
but what I
works.
mean is,
So let's be honest.
how does a craft get from Earth to the moon and back without our awareness of it? Is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm not saying that the government wouldn't know.
Okay.
Think about it this way, right? There is a whole group of people that believe that we didn't even go to the moon in the first place, and that
Sure.
that was all made up,
Right.
just for us to win the Cold War, which,
Right.
like we're saying, never really ended. But if that was theoretically a reality, who's to say that we're not blocking it out? That I mean, if another nation's made it up
Guys,
there and we had proof,
Can I? This is a breaking story. I forgot this happened. Okay. As I say that, as I'm sitting here, the cynic, I'm a full-time rideshare driver. I go into Boston a lot of times. I was in, I think it was still technically Cambridge, right past the Museum of Science, heading back into Boston. It's a couple months ago. So December, maybe November. I'm sitting in traffic, pretty big moon, and low in the sky. It was maybe like, I mean, the sun goes down, so it's probably like 4 p.m., but it was still kind of dusk, not full night, like still like a blue hour type of vibe, right? Big moon. I swear to Jesus, I'm just sitting there, I'm just looking at the moon, and I saw something transit the moon. I saw like a long kind of thin. I'm the skeptic, and I'm like, wait a second, I forgot this shit happened.
like a Muamua.
I don't know what that is. I saw it. It looked almost like something out of Star Wars. You know, just a long, thin, kind of like metallic. You know, looked like it was big. It moved slow. It didn't take up the entirety of the moon, and it took a few seconds to go by, and it just kind of happened. And I just kind of was like, I just kind of watched it. I was like, excuse, no one else in the car with me. I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, what? Okay, so I guess as I sit here trying to be skeptical, I'm also like, what? And I Googled later. I was, trying to just like, I think I saw something transit the moon, and no one was talking about it. No one else was saying it. You know what I mean? So clearly it would have to be between Earth and the moon, to
Check your phone. Did it look like what I just sent you? I put it in the group chat.
Let's see. I don't know what a Muamua is. All right, let's see. Brother, I'm going to flip the fuck out, dude. What? I mean, depending on how long this thing is, it certainly proportionally could fit. It certainly proportionally.
So you remember
You're telling me that's the
Atlas?
exact figure you saw?
I can't say exact. I'm not confident enough to say exact, but it like that kind of long, thin kind of, and it was like, it was moving vertically, and it just, slowly just kind of like the shadow, you know what I mean? The silhouette just passed kind of in front of the moon. And I was like, okay. But it was almost as long, you know what I mean? Anyway, I did not expect this conversation. I literally forgot this happened. I just didn't. It just left my mind. And I'm like, wait a
Well, I
minute.
can tell when you took your glasses off. I was like, damn, this has support.
Like something happened.
And you're convinced it's not
but-
Starlink, right? Not Starlink whatsoever.
I don't know. I'm not convinced anything about anything. I don't know. I saw this happen. Is all I can say with confidence. So anyway, I needed to contribute that.
I just think it's funny. Have you guys looked into any of the Chinese aircraft?
Actually,
I mean,
no,
here,
that's
Jared,
one piece
we've been
I have
talking
been
about- yeah.
very understudied. I agree with a lot of what you're saying with China. I think that there's a missing argument to all this, that China did do something to escalate the Cold War that we all just blatantly forget about because it's over. But I genuinely do think they had a lot more to do with COVID than they're willing to admit. They could have shut down their country really fast,
what do you
especially
mean?
with how they treat their citizens. They don't care. They could have just shut their country down, but then the rest of the world wouldn't have suffered with them. So whether it was intentional or not, it definitely had the effects of an intentional attack, Yeah,
I can agree with that.
One thing that we need to remember is China is a country with such a long history, right? I've studied China. I'm learning Mandarin. They they have a lot of pride, which is good. I mean, any country should have pride, especially in themselves. But what it comes down to is a lot of people don't remember the Opium Wars. There were 2 of them. You know, when the West brought through the Silk Road, the West was bringing essentially heroin to the people that trade for spices, and all of the people were doping up and, overdosing and turned into a failed society. And they haven't really forgotten about that. And that's why, like today, when we see I'm not going to lie, a lot of that stuff comes from China now, and it happens to come to America. This is their revenge. And I don't believe it's the average, Chinese person that wants that, but their hierarchy of government is just, it's so much, it's a different world. I mean, the language is so much different. The characters are so much different than our letters and all this. It's like so alien to us Americans, but they are dead set on getting revenge. And part of me doesn't blame them, because look at what the West did to them in the first place. I mean, it's exactly what's happening to us, and look at how we're responding to it.
Yeah.
So
no, as soon as you said that, I was like, gee, that sounds familiar. That sounds like something we've been trying to deal with in our own country.
There's always a reason.
It's the war on drugs, man.
Yeah.
It really is an epidemic. It's because, I mean, with the police department and the fire department, I worked with people that were addicted. It's not that, somebody decides that, yeah, you know what, I want to live off of only having the ability to shoot up to stay alive. Like, that's not what these people are thinking. I don't know. That's a whole nother topic that we'll talk about another time. Especially when Tyler's back, because him and I can go back and forth about that stuff. We disagree on certain things when it comes to like safe injection sites and all that.
Sure.
I'm more for them. He is more hardline against them.
Yeah.
But as far as preventing larger issues, I believe they're beneficial.
Agree.
But I mean, it's just another thing that's plaguing us,
Yeah.
And what are we doing right now? Like what we just did with Venezuela.
Yeah.
And this year we're going to be 250 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a country that is thousands
I know,
of
we're
years
a baby.
old. Yeah. That's not even
We're like a baby in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, truthfully. That's reality.
We really are.
And you can connect this to the history conversation. You can connect this to the space conversation. There's so much we don't know. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's so much out there. It's just something I think about a lot, is the way that like we think we know so much. We think we're so secure, and in a lot of ways we are, but there's just a lot that could be very different if we keep looking into it, What's your, Jared, I want to hear more of your kind of takes on this ongoing Cold War. If it is just, is that, are you on the same page with all that, or what's your kind of take?
I'm on the same page. Same war, different players, like the damage was done. Like it's been a part of our history for so long. And I mean, I like that you guys brought up China a lot more than Russia, but at this point in my head, I kind of group them all up as almost the same group. Like, I guess I'd ask you guys, do you think they'd ever turn on one another? Because, I mean, they share the same continent.
So,
yeah, they have a border.
That's a good question. And I've even seen it put, back in my more liberal days, and even sometimes I'll still read him a bit, but there's a blogger named Noah Smith that I used to really pay a lot of attention to. And he has talked, and again, he's an economist, but he talks a lot about politics, and he's talked about what he calls the new axis, and he defines that as Russia, China, and Iran as the new sort of three-headed snake, so to speak. And this is, since at least 2024, if not sooner. Like, he's been looking at those three as one kind of, their own united alliance. It is an interesting question if they would, turn on each other, if there would ever be any sort of internal.
I don't think it would happen, but I do think it's fear mostly.
BRICS is so strong, man, and they're only getting stronger every year. A lot of people don't realize that NATO isn't the only, treaty organization.
Sure.
BRICS is what? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South America, and somebody else just joined up with them too. There's another country just joined them.
Okay.
And it's in both China and Russia's best interest to keep North Korea as they are, because, you know, they draw attention away from them. They share borders. They don't want to deal with the mass immigration. I mean, imagine if North Korea had collapsed, right? Who's going to have to deal with it? China and Russia.
That's a
So they're like, let's keep feeding that problem so it's not ours.
Sure. Hey, listen.
You know, we haven't heard much from North Korea, which is surprising and kind of nice. But it's still an issue. And I mean, even look at the South China Sea. Look at what China's doing out there. They're building islands. They're building bases. They just had an incursion with a Australian P-8, you know, which is a anti-sub and surveillance aircraft. It's like a Boeing, I think it's a Boeing 737 or something. Correct me if I'm wrong, but whatever platform it's based off of. And I mean, they're so stupid because they just flew one of their most highly advanced fighters so close to a plane that has cameras on it that can watch a chessboard from 40,000 feet. And so what happened was they collected so much data, and the Chinese pilot was an idiot for it. He's flying all around it, and what are the sensors picking up? They're picking up where the heat signatures are, where the hydraulic lines go. And then the Chinese pilot went in front of them, pulled his flares to try to jam up the engines on the Australian aircraft. But every country, every fighter platform has a unique type of flares and chaff, because they don't want their enemies to be able to tell what is chaff and what is exhaust, or what is flares and what's exhaust. That way, because if we know what they're using, we can program our missiles to disregard that and go straight for their engines. He gave up 15, 20, maybe even 30 years of research in an hour, and he knocked out one engine on the plane. And they returned to base fine, and we gathered all of that data. And that was China trying to flex, but what did they really do? They gave up all of their secrets.
No, it really is like a big chess game, you know, and trying to make a big move too soon when the rest of your pieces aren't ready can do a lot more harm than good. For what it's worth,
right? Those flying
balloons.
Oh my God.
Dude, I still don't feel satisfied on what any of that was. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, the F-22 got its first confirmed kill with that, okay? Don't take that away from him.
There you go. I just, for what it's worth, I do, and not to be a meat rider, but I just, my instinct is I do feel, because it's the 20th. Today's been the whole big, inauguration anniversary. I do feel like we are further from a Taiwan incident today than we were when Biden left office. I feel like the likelihood of a Chinese incursion onto Taiwan is less likely now than it was a year ago.
I highly disagree with you.
That feels like the big next, if there is to be a big next escalation, it feels like that's what it would be. But
I have to disagree with you for a few reasons.
Okay, because I'm just going on vibes. So if you have reasons, those are better than vibes.
We're spending a lot of resources and time focusing on Venezuela. We're refocusing at the same time on Greenland.
Also true.
We're also focusing and spending a lot of resources with Israel and Iran. Right? What better time would it be for China to make this a 5-pronged issue instead of a 4? We've got 4 prongs right now, right?
I see what you're saying.
China's very intelligent. Divide and conquer, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Sun Tzu's from China, or Sun Tzu.
Yes.
He wrote the Art of War. We have so many irons in the fire right now, it would almost be the best time for China to move on Taiwan. I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is China might have the largest navy, and I might have been talking a little bit crap about their navy before. Their navy's not an expeditionary force, but when it comes to their neighborhood, they can operate so effectively. And every single ferry boat, every civilian ship that's built in China has to be built to military spec. Because guess what? When they go for Taiwan, they're going to commandeer all of their ferry ships and say, hey, you're not bringing cars from Hong Kong to China anymore. You're bringing tanks from mainland to Taiwan.
Sure. I see all of that. Listen, I can see that framing as we're spread thin and we're, a little maybe out of our depth. I see it as, again, we're waving the stick. Listen, that, what is it, B-2 bombers, the sortie on the Iranian nuclear sites like that. I see that as not as the U.S. allocating resources unnecessarily. I see that as the U.S. barely breaking a sweat. I see that as the U.S. doing its own flexing and saying, listen, we can fuck shit up if we need to. You know what I mean? And
never underestimate Uncle Sam.
Right.
However,
and same with Venezuela, just saying, listen, if you want to come at us, don't forget what we're still capable. That's what I see this as. I don't see it as we're getting spread thin. I see it as implicit threats.
For the exact number, I believe it's in the ballpark of $20 billion of defense apertures that we are behind on delivering to Taiwan. They've ordered them from U.S. defense contractors, and we have yet to fulfill them. $20 billion worth, I believe, is the figure.
I mean, if that's true, that's a lot of money. Sure, for sure.
Palmer Luckey was talking about it on Rogan. It's a serious issue. And so they're behind. They've already ordered and paid for it, and we haven't delivered. And realistically, he even talks about it. What won World War II? What won us World War II? It was our manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
It was the fact that we could convert the, automobile and farm, and tractor manufacturers and all these different things. We could convert those into wartime manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's only a handful of Raytheon plants. There's only a handful of GE plants and stuff that we can really convert to create the current weapons of the modern battlefield.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not like it was. China can build incredible stuff in a split second. They have the labor force. They have the manufacturing. It's a lot more scary now than it's ever been, in my opinion, when it comes to the China front.
I agree. It could be 3 months, could be 6 months, could be tomorrow. I think that it's very much their next step, thinking like the way they would think about all this. So I agree with you 100%.
When it comes to Navy, I mean, they can build, they can build 300 ships in the time that it takes us to build one ship.
Yeah, and just one more reason why I think we as a country should stop pushing college so hard, to go back to Jared's story and start encouraging more trades jobs and more trades sector growth. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day. The one question nagging me, Jared, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to ask you a hypothetical. What do you think it takes for this to de-escalate? Where do you think things go, and what does it take for this Cold War 2.0 or this extension of the Cold War to cool off, so to speak? You know what I mean?
That is a great question, because the whole point of a Cold War is that it always kind of stays the way it is, I think. I don't think that there's really going to be a de-escalation as an end, because what happens when all these leaders are, dead or gone, or, they're not going to get, they're not going to get kicked out by an election. We know that much. I don't think that's not possible. So I really think that it's inevitable that one side, either one wins, or we just keep on getting so powerful on both sides that nothing ever happens. Whole idea of a Cold War. I do think that the United States should be pushing to get further ahead, because from the outsider's perspective, I'm not a government official. I'm just a citizen, normal Joe Schmo. It feels almost like every day like we are almost behind. I don't feel like we are the champions of freedom or national superpower that I believed us to be when I was like a 5-year-old going, USA, USA, It almost feels like that mentality is dying off. I think that I don't think there's an end. I don't think there's a de-escalation. If there is, it's going to be after major escalation. I'm not saying nuclear bombs, using that horrible, horrible word, but it's going to be a land war of some degree, acquisition of assets. I don't think political assassination's on the agenda either. It's just going to be really an economic war, and then who gets the land in the long run, and then the winner gets to write the history of it. So,
as usual, quick hit before we move on here. You guys think anything happens with Cuba in the next, let's say, year? Anything substantial happening down south?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We already have the largest floating airfield in that region because of Venezuela.
True.
You know, I mean, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Sure.
We have a lot of assets that are still down there. I mean, we turned that entire region to the largest floating airbase on the planet with the amount of resources that we had there. I mean, between the, you know, the carriers and the Aegis systems and everything like that. I mean, I don't really think that would make too much sense right now strategically, because Cuba's kind of been insignificant. You know, Russia can't get, it's not like the Cold War when Russia could put, you know, nukes there, and they don't have a path there unless it's through the Atlantic. And if we secure Greenland, then we choke that off. You know, I mean, Russia's having a hard time moving resources from their border to Ukraine. You think they're going to really be able to get it to Cuba? I think it'd be a waste of time right now, but I'm also just a peon. I don't know what they know, you know? So it would be one more headache that the State Department has to deal with. We have so many already.
Sure.
And
for Marco, man. Hashtag pray for Marco.
Yeah.
Doing all those jobs.
Don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I gotta look into it, but my grandfather, again, born in the Netherlands, basically under Nazi occupation. They come to America basically as soon as they can. Grows up in, you know, south of Boston, and ends up enrolling in the U.S. Navy. And we think, he didn't talk about it much, but we think he might have been on one of the ships that was quarantining Cuba during the whole missile crisis, and he may or may not have seen a Soviet ship turn around. So I want to do more research into his naval records and just see what's out there about what he might have seen and where he might have been. But
oh yeah, that must have been terrifying. That whole blockade, and like just, yeah, I mean, 13 hours, man. It was like the end of the world. And did you ever hear the story about the Soviet sub that lost contact with command?
Oh no, Jesus!
Oh, I don't know the full one off the top of my head, but I know about this. Please, if you know it off the top of your head, please.
Yeah. So, a Soviet sub lost contact with their command, and they were submerged. It was Soviet sub B-59. In October of '62, they were submerged, and all of a sudden, something came in, and the XO, I believe it was the XO, who was like second in command of the sub, got their urge, like, you know, we got to launch because we lost communication because the war started. And the captain, it was one or the other, and the other one said, like, listen, no, we're not launching, like, that's a stupid idea. And like half the crew was like, no, we're going to launch. And the other half of the crew was like, maybe not. And the fact that they didn't launch is what really saved the world, because they had the capability to start World War III and essentially end the world. And he ended up, I believe the captain or the XO, whichever one made the call not to launch, got some big award afterwards for essentially saving the world, because they had the keys put in, they were ready to launch. Like I said, half the crew was good to go. They were like, this is our job, let's do it. And I mean, they were going to put missiles all through Florida pretty much.
Jeez. Man, well, yeah. Thank God. Listen, crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's about how I remember that, which is crazy to think we were that close to really mass annihilation. Like, no one would have really lived if it actually occurred. So
we've gotten really close, dude. It's scary how close this world's come to. I mean, it only gets more and more delicate as the time goes. AI is going to just...
Well, and that was my whole next thing. As pro AI as I am, there's always a place for the human element and for human instinct, for sure.
Well, the amount of times that I see boomers, and I say that in a loving way because both my parents are boomers.
We listen. At this point, Gen X are boomers. Unfortunately, it's become a catch-all.
I respectfully disagree with that, but
I do too. It's just the way of the world, man.
It's funny because the amount of times that I see people on Facebook, you know, with an AI video, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I hope that person's okay," and it's like you look at their page and it's like, this is an AI video. You can tell by the audio That's the one thing right now, currently.
They all have similar voices,
Well,
and there's
for-
like that slight like cleanliness
Echo.
to it. You're like, this just doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. But I mean, I'm sure AI is going to fix that and patch that up, eventually. And it's going to get harder and harder over the years. But I mean, it's becoming more of believe, half of what you see half of what you see and nothing of what you hear or whatever. And it's going to turn into like believe half of what you see on your screen and
like
I don't know.
1%.
Listen, I've already seen like certified AI commercials on TV. Like companies are using AI, and I don't hate it, but
I think on social media especially there should be a mandatory tag where if you're using AI.
So I've figured this out. I've solved it.
Mm-hmm.
Just as in human biology and any biology, just as incest is bad, just as reproducing with your own pre-existing genetic code is bad, training
Unless you
AI.
have English royal family.
Hey, listen. In the same way, training AI on AI generated content tends to lead to bad results because you've always, as I think we all agree, you've always got to look at incentives. You know what I mean? No one's going to voluntarily. This was made by AI. The AI companies are going to need to tag their own shit as soon as it goes out the door because then they know not to scrape it back later. That's what's going to do it. It's not going to be people being mandated to you have to tag this because no one's going to do it, but the AI companies themselves are going to reach a point where they're like, we can't afford to scrape any more of our own slop back. We're going to need to put some metadata and everything that goes out, every image, every whatever, so that we know not to scrape it back and taint our own data. So I think that's going to be the tipping point, and maybe that comes in a couple of years. But does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you guys follow what I'm going for there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
that's why
it's kind of it's regurgitating on itself.
Right. And they're going to have to, the problem of, because again, it's the incentives, individuals being fed AI generated content, no one bats an eye. Big major AI corporation finding that its product is suffering, everyone loses their mind. That's what's going to affect change in the world. Unfortunately, I just feel confident that that's the more likely order of operations there. I think we could get into a really good conversation on AI, on dead internet theory. I know that's something we talked a little about before we hit record, but I feel like we're getting to a good point. We've had a really good conversation for today. I agree. I'm psyched with the progress that the Working Theory podcast continues to make. Jared, we're very happy to have you on. And again, hopefully we'll have you back. Any last anything you want to share with the good people here whose eyes and ears are trained on this episode here?
No, I mean, I'd like to apologize. I didn't say too much, but by default, I normally would like to have a few more notes. I was underprepared today, which is not like me. That is something that I never would do, but I figured, let's treat this like a conversation.
Dive right in, buddy.
I think that's the best way to do it.
That's what it's all about, but albeit you guys, it seems like we're like-minded fellows, which is pretty rare. I don't think we disagreed on much, which is good. I liked a lot of the points about China because, it's really not talked about openly all that often. I don't think. Maybe on certain news outlets, but I feel like portraying them as the bad guys almost frowned upon, at least where we're from. So, all that being said, I'll be more prepared next time. I will.
No, hey, listen, we're all doing the best we can. You guys know we're still getting ourselves off the ground, so thank you for bearing with us. But I think these sorts of impromptu, informal conversations are the best way to do it. So I'm glad we could. JP, anything you wanted to sign off with here?
Oh, I just want to say, thank you for following us along this far, and it's only going to get better. I promise you, we're going to figure out how to get the in-studio stuff figured out.
Yes.
And we're going to get some good stuff and get some good guests on. We talked about Cuba a little bit. I do have a family friend who is pretty big out in the Boston area, and him and his wife both emigrated from Cuba.
Well,
and he was a teenager under Castro.
Wow.
So that will be a really good one to bring on. And I mean, we're starting to get some guests kind of lined up.
Yeah.
And we'll discuss that more further on. But
Yeah.
I'm very happy to have Jared here today. I mean, first real guest, and I'm super pumped to have him. I think that you added a lot to the
Oh, I could
conversation.
have talked more about
and
AI too. Trust me. Like,
Well, hey, listen, that can be for episode 4,
oh
buddy.
yeah,
We could use
Yes.
AI
Well,
to help
we're-
podcast, right?
I'm kidding. That's
Right.
the
Now
problem.
he's thinking. Now
Good.
he's thinking. Well, we're excited to have you guys all on for the ride. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Again, as we record this, it is January 20th. Hopefully this episode will be coming out very shortly after, and we'll start getting into a rhythm of regular episodes as we record them. But we've got a few in the backlog right now, and we're just right this close, ready to get them out into the world. So by the time you hear this, it'll be hopefully a quick flurry, and then we'll get into a rhythm for you guys. So be sure to follow, be sure to subscribe, be sure to share with anyone and everyone who's going to like this, and even a few people who won't. And we look forward to having them along for the ride as well. But until next time, I've been Nick for Jared and JP, Working Theory signing off. Thank you guys. Be well. Take care.
Thank
Thank you.